Hi guys, and welcome back to another edition of the Kevin Moore Show. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Sarah Lawrence. Now Sarah specializes in accessing your Akashic Records. Now the Akashic Records are literally a recording of every thought, action and emotion in your soul's history. And through Sarah, she can search your personal data stream in the Akashic information. Now, this will help you with any issues and circumstances in your present moment, and to also identify and clear restrictions that are holding you back, so you can experience easier manifestations, better intuition, and much more. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm very happy to be here.
Really appreciate your conversation that we just had off air there as well. So thank you. And a fellow Brit as well, another person from the same country that's living in the same state of Kansas. How is that possible?
I don't know really, but we're two Brits abroad on the Kansas prairie. That's the way I like to see it. So, with the wind whistling through our hair.
I know, right? I know. How long have you been over here for?
I've been here in the United States since 2001, and I've lived in several different states. And then I moved here to Wichita in 2008, I think.
Right. What was your sort of favorite state to be in so far?
Oh, the states of mind or the states of the United States? I guess we could. There are several of those. But I think, I don't know, I've enjoyed them all. I have to say there's a big place in my heart for Virginia. Because the first place I lived in the United States was Virginia Beach.
Oh, I loved it as well.
Yes.
I did.
Yeah, great vibe. And it was the home of Edgar Cayce, who's one of my heroes.
Yeah. I went to the Edgar Cayce Center. I filmed with them, with the 15,000 readings of Cayce behind us. Do you know what? Here's the weird thing about Virginia Beach. I was resistive to go in there because I had so much going on. I flew in late night. It was just getting dark, and I'd got to the hotel, and I thought, I'm going to go out for a walk. I'm just so tired, but I don't know where I am. Do you know what I mean? And
right.
I went outside, and I was like, oh my God, I've come home. I felt like I was back at home, and I was like, oh my God, this reminds me of like something like Cleethorpes or, some place in the UK that, I've been to before. And I was like, there's something so familiar about this place.
There is. I lived in Brighton and Hove before I moved to Virginia Beach, so it really felt like home from home, and it was really odd because it's the same place but the other side of the ocean, and Brighton and Hove are that way.
Yeah.
If you look across the water.
That
I love the vibe there. Love it.
It's beautiful. Oh, it's great, and I think I can understand why the Cayce Center's there, and there's a lot going on there. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure one day we'll both go back in our own way. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure we'll do. Yeah,
definitely.
So how long have you? Well, actually, let me ask you this: what is it that you do? If you were to sum up what you do, how would you sum it up?
Ooh, interesting. Well, I think in general terms, I'm what's called an intuitive, sensitive person. And I'm able to help people tune into their divine soul blueprint, which is an aspect of a person's soul that's the same through every lifetime, if you happen to believe in the frame of past lives. And when I tune into this divine soul blueprint, I'm able to help people connect with themselves in a much more powerful way so that they're more energetic in life. It activates something called vital force energy. And they can learn to become more abundant, more fulfilled, and also clear any energetic blocks and restrictions they might have in their Akashic record. So that's basically what I do. So lots of new terms for people to listen to and understand. Feel free to ask me more questions and break that down if you want.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to get back into that. So when did you start to realize you had this ability?
Well, I'm one of those kids who kind of had a secret life. So I would say the truth of it was probably from the age of 3 upwards. So I kind of had a sense of, I know it sounds weird, but other people's subconscious thoughts, or if their actions didn't match their words. And I just assumed at a fairly young age that everyone could do that. And it was, we all did it, but nobody talked about it. And then later on, I discovered that that's not actually necessarily the case for everybody. So from a child, and I didn't really discuss it much. One of the turning points for me was going with a friend to see a Romany gypsy on Portsmouth Pier when I was like 17. And she read my hands, both the palms of my hands and the backs of my hands. And she was so incredibly accurate. I kind of went, oh, I'm not the only one that's like this. So that's when I started to think I might, there might be more people like me out there, because I was starting to feel very isolated and alone about it. But it wasn't really until my early 30s that I came out, if you like, of the spiritual closet and started figuring out what was really going on. So yeah, from the age of 3 is a short answer, I would say.
What is it about turning 30? I had the same experience, not coming out like that, but in the sense of my life changed overnight. Do you know what I mean? In from 29 to
Yes,
30, new path. It's almost like it's some sort of significant turning point for us all.
true. I don't know, maybe the many ages of man and or woman. There are just stages where I think we have opportunities in our life to grow, and if we meet catalytic people or find ourselves in catalytic circumstances or situations, then if we're ready, we open up to the next thing. I think that's
Right.
what happens.
Now, going back to 30, I guess you had no perception or perceived no ideas that you were going to live abroad one day, did you?
No, although I had other people call it sometimes. What actually happened was, I met a colleague. We ultimately ended up becoming business partners. But during that growth process, we both got involved in something called neuro linguistic programming, or NLP, which you may have heard of. And from that, we designed a company, and basically, it kind of sparked my personal growth. Both of us, while doing business stuff, also were interested in what she's still a dear friend of mine, my business partner used to call weekends of weird. So we'd go away for weird weekends with all sorts of different alternative and unusual practitioners, very talented people. And it just kind of started to expand my mind. And I had so many people on that journey say to me, you're really psychic, Sarah, and you should do this and this. And I was like, really? It was like, duh, big question mark overhead. And then ultimately, I started researching it and realized, oh, that's what all that inner life was about. I just really didn't have a place to put it. So that's kind of how it all opened in my 30s, as kind of a professional growth thing. And then
Hmm.
it became a personal growth thing.
How old were you then when you made the transition to come to America?
I was mid 30s, 36, around that age. Yeah, so a lot later than a lot of people. So I still have very many friends in the UK, and work colleagues, and also friends and work colleagues in the US too.
So was it then eventually being over here in the US that you eventually sort of started to see that, you can do these divine soul blueprint readings, but how did it lead to getting into divine soul blueprint readings from coming over to the States?
Oh, interesting. So when I got here, I came here for family reasons and got married. And then 3 months after I was here, I was going through all the green card stuff and everything. And I actually got pregnant within 3 months. I got pregnant very quickly. So there I was in a new country, 3 months. My partner at the time was in the US Navy, so he wasn't around much. And then, so there was a whole bunch of things going on. But basically, what happened was, I needed to support my health in my pregnancy, and I was living in Virginia Beach, as we just mentioned. So I got involved with a reflexology practitioner from the Association of Research and Enlightenment, the ARE. And then I ended up learning reflexology, and it started to really connect the dots for me, because not only did it help my health through pregnancy, but I was laying my hands on other people and going, this is really interesting. I'm learning information from connecting with meridians and other people's hands, feet, and ears, which is what reflexology is about, acupressure. So then I went on from there and got involved I'd always wanted to get involved with this lady called Peggy Phoenix Dubrow, who practices a very well-known form of energy work now called the EMF balancing technique. So over a number of years, I did the training with her, and more dots were connected. And then what happened in 2010, a book came in the mail that I didn't order. and it was called How to Read the Akashic Records by a lady called Linda Howe. I always think it's funny that her name is Howe. I look for names that are like similar. And I opened the book and I got this really weird sensation, like energy was moving all over my body. So I feel like, we're all in the right place sometimes where catalysts can connect us and create growth. And literally, it was spontaneously from that point forward that I realized that I could give readings.
Wow. Okay. And so when you first started to give readings, then was it sort of just to friends and colleagues and stuff? Were you just sort of practicing? Yep. Mm-hmm.
I practiced, I did some work online. I studied online a bit to expand the ability, but I had, small kids in school at that point. So, and I'm very nerdy. I'm basically a spiritual nerd. I was self-teaching myself WordPress at the time, so I could blog because that was the thing then, 2010, that was all coming on. So I did all of that, great fun, and it just really, the thing about the Akashic Records for me is it connected all the dots. And so for years, I could give you a list of all the different experiences I've had, but I never knew why I was having them or what they were for. And suddenly, once I got connected with the Akashic Records, it's like a system of all our energetic and spiritual data. So once you can put something in a system, you can understand it. You can channel information and going, well, that was cool. Or you can have a spiritual experience and you think that's interesting. You could have a mediumship experience. You go, well, that's really interesting too. Or you could have like a synchronistic experience, where somebody calls you, you're just thinking about them. Everyone goes, wow, and we're all mind blown. But it's like, how do you put all of that into a system? Well, that's what the Akashic Records is. So then it started to help me answer questions about what had been going on my journey. And that's really why I identify with the Akashic Records work so strongly.
So actually, it was sort of heal yourself first in one way, well, or help yourself
Yeah.
first. Then you realized, oh my God, how powerful this is. This all makes sense. It didn't take away some of the difficult times, some of the difficult days, right? But
Nope.
it allowed it
Nope.
to make sense.
Absolutely. I was the kid who always went, why? Why? So actually getting some really big whys was very, very helpful for me.
So when you did have difficult days, and I know you've been through quite a bit, right?
Hmm.
And we all have, but I mean, it's still your personal journey. And to me, it sounded like quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
There's no free tickets, is there? Even doing this work, there's no free tickets.
No, that's really interesting. When you say free tickets, what do you mean? Like get
Yeah,
outs
get
or?
out clause. Just because you're doing this work and you think that you've found some of the answers that you've been looking for a long time and everything else, and it eases a lot of stuff. There's things happen, don't they?
They do. And so what is enlightening though about the Akashic work and a bit more freeing for people, and really the focus of it for me is about empowerment, empowering people to access their own inner spiritual authority, if you like, is that we really bump up against this again and again. We can all do spiritual work. We can all sit on our bums and meditate. We can go to lovely retreats, but then we have to come back to real life. And so all aspects of what happens to us in life are all related to choices we make. Now, if we were talking about us as souls at purely the soul level, a lot of people will come on the line with me and say, what's my soul purpose? I want to know what my purpose is. Why am I here? Because at some level they're going, there's all this crap going down and I don't like it. Why am I here and having to deal with all of this? And it's like, well, at the pure soul level, all souls want to know when they experience themselves as an incarnated soul, in a human body, they just want to experience themselves as a soul going through those experiences. That's it. At the very highest level, that's all they want, is all consciousness wants is to know itself as an individuated aspect. So when it comes to dealing with the difficulties, if we can truly learn to take full responsibility for the choices that we make, that's one way that we can start looking at the choices and then see if they align with our divine soul blueprint. So if they do, I know you're going to ask me a question. If they do, then we can say, well, that was a good choice, or we can characterize it as good if you like. Or we can say, oh, I made a different choice that time and that resulted in this situation. We can't fall back on magical thinking anymore. We can't be Rhonda Byrne in The Secret going, I dreamed a red bicycle, so I got one. It doesn't work like that. We're in 3D. We've got to manifest what we want by making choices.
And how do we know what our soul blueprint wants? Is that through is that intuition part of it, or if you want to answer that, you're completely your own way. I'd prefer you to, but I keep thinking intuition. That's all.
Right. So there is a process that I've learned through study and application, whereby through the Akashic Records, a person can help intuit somebody else's divine soul blueprint. So think of it as an extremely high level personality profile, or if you've ever had Myers-Briggs or, anything like that done that people do, or an Enneagram, things like that. So what it helps a person reconnect with, or sometimes just be validated for, is who they really are at soul level. And so as souls, let's take the last 5,000 years as a little chunk of time. All we've been able to do really as humans is survive. And think about when we get out, like in the religious framework, it's like, well, when we actually leave this earthly, we drop our mortal coil and all of that, then we leave and we end up going to heaven, right? So we'll do all the things we need to do in order to get to heaven in this lifetime. So that's one kind of, if you like, stream that's affected our view of spirituality or religion. I'm not knocking religious process absolutely at all. I'm not here to change anyone's beliefs or anything like that. Lots of religious systems are beautiful and very, very successful and helpful. However, when it comes to becoming self-actualized spiritually, we need to understand that, how can we empower ourselves to make different choices this time around? And over the last 5,000 years, if you believe in past lives, how many past lives have we lived? And when have we made choices outside of that connection to our divine soul blueprint? Because they haven't served us, and we may have generated karma, which is building up in like a karmic backpack. So kind of looping back around to your question, how does the divine soul blueprint inform us? Think of it like a way of behaving that maximizes how we can move forward and grow in life with maximum energy and live the best life we can. So I know that sounds a bit complex, but when we start heading off into the Akashic Records, there's quite a lot of energetic stuff to discuss.
And obviously, everyone's reading of that energetic energy is completely different, because we're all on, certain different paths, and we're just in this interview trying to give some common themes as well.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but we know when we've made bad decisions, don't we? That we. But actually, okay, no, because what we're saying here, you did say as well, the soul wants experience. The soul craves experience, craves. So there are no choices. There are no mistakes. As a good friend of mine says, just experiences.
There, you get the big British thumbs up from me for that. So with choices, there is a tendency in the modern world, we still judge choices because we've come from, if you think back again to the last 5,000 years, we've come from control systems. I mean, let's just imagine you, Kevin, were, I don't know, in medieval times, and you weren't a landowner, but you lived on a landowner's land. How many rights did you have? I mean, what rights did you have about anything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you think of any?
Yeah, absolutely none. Yeah.
Other than paying your tithes or your taxes or whatever.
And breathing and just surviving.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, we're coming out of a huge cycle of time where that's where human consciousness was at. Whereas now here we are in what I call the Akashic Age, and some people call the Aquarian Age, where we're learning to activate our own spiritual authority. So, I mean, you, Kevin, now in this lifetime, what are the choices that you have, and what rights do you have compared to you, Kevin, the slave guy or whatever?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I feel so free in this lifetime. I know I am.
Right.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I always say to myself, "Hey, Jesus, look what you've just manifested. You wanted that just not too long ago, and look how that's just come." It may be a little thing, but that's a big thing to me sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yes.
I see the power in it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And are those lifetimes? I see. I mean, we're discussing here things that we really have not a clue about in some respects because we can't remember
Hmm.
coming from where we came from. We don't
Hmm.
know, we just can't remember a lot, can we? I mean, we can go into a higher self and bring our own truth through, and that may be a way of remembering, right?
Right.
But what I'm trying to point to is that what am I trying to point to? I suppose all we know is a sort of grain of sand on an infinite beach, and what this
Mm.
really is so much bigger, probably.
It really is so much bigger, but what's great about the Akashic Records is you can really focus that lens. So one example, yeah, of a type of reading that I would give to help you with that whole grain of, I'm the grain of sand in the ocean with everyone else washing about. So first of all, all of us intrinsically are actually attached, automatically connected to the Akashic Records because we all have a soul. That's part of the soul system, the Akashic Records. It's a system of data collection, if you like. But then it becomes just like with Google, what data from that collection is useful for us and actionable in modern life. We're coming through this, like I said, I'm using the framework of this last 5,000 years of, coming towards more personal and individual freedoms for the human. Obviously, not everybody on the planet yet, but a lot more. So we're becoming self actualized, self aware. What are we going to do with this ability to express ourselves spiritually? And so one of the things we can do is go, I want specific information from my Akashic record. I want to set this frame of reference, and this is what I want to get out of it. I want to know what energetic blocks and restrictions are holding me back in this lifetime so that I can clear them and become more of who I want to be this time around. And that's why, at the very essence of the work, is why we need to reconnect with our divine soul blueprints. Because it's a comparison thing. Like if you knew, Kevin, so we talked about, I mean, I'm kidding about you being like a landowner. I haven't read your Akashic records. I don't know. I'm just giving an example. But when your soul first separated from creator consciousness and learned to know itself in a body, what were you like then? Based on your soul in present life, with all the choices that you may have made and directions you may have gone in, what's the difference between the two? That's basically what I do, is I just compare those two patterns, and then people go,
Yeah,
oh.
I think I was out of control, abusive, a real bastard probably, and just having a real ball, just being everything that I wasn't from where I came from. I think in this lifetime, right now, I'm a little bit more conscious of my actions, or trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also feel that, and again, grain of sand on an infinite beach. What do I know? But these
Right.
lifetimes may be happening now. They're not. There may not be. It may not be past as we understand it. So therefore, this lifetime affects all those other lifetimes. Those lifetimes are affecting this. And I think the more you can come from life in the present moment that you are consciously aware of the lifetime right now, maybe that ripples to all the others, no matter what they're doing. I don't know. Maybe that's just all in my head, and it sounds fun to talk about. But I do feel that sometimes the simplest answer is probably the one that's maybe true, and yeah, maybe simply we don't understand time.
I think that's true, very true from the third dimensional perspective. So here's a fun thought for you, because you just mentioned multidimensionality. So it's very difficult for us as a human being, the aspect of our soul incarnated into a human body, to think outside of time and space, because we're in it, aren't we? So that's literally our frame of reference. So how do you get that information that's in the higher dimensions, and how are they connected to us, is probably your question. Sorry, I've got a list here if you want to. Questions, by the way, are what the Akashic Records is all about, because if you like, you can think of you as the human browser with all your belief systems in place that are firewalls and things like that. And then you're looking out onto your Akashic data from all your current, and past lives, and you're going, well, what do I really want to know? When you Google something, when you Google a lamp on Google, you have to Google like lamp with a green lampshade, right? If you want to see those kind of lamps. It's just the same with your Akashic data. You need to set some kind of frame of reference or some kind of search engine to get the information that's useful and actionable for you. Or you can just be like zenned out by the multitude of things that you can learn, because you are a grain of sand on a beach. We're all these grains of sand, or the drop in the ocean, or whatever you want to call it. But so putting that in place. So what do you want to know about the Akashic record? And I've gone completely blank. What was your last question?
Don't even
I
worry
kind of
about
zenned
it
out
because
myself there.
yeah, no. I mean, this is such a fascinating conversation that I've got so many questions anyway. To go back to the last one, there's just no time right now. Okay, then one thing that comes to me as well is just explain how you give a reading to a client. Are you going into some sort of altered state? I mean, obviously you're conscious when you're doing it, but how is that? How have you? What is that process that you've learned to do basically, and how does it work for a client?
Okay, great. I love the term altered state because, we tend to characterize that in a certain way, don't we? But and I mentioned states a little earlier, which, bless him, I got that frame of reference from Richard Bandler, the originator of NLP. But so what is a state? So we're in a state of mind when we drive a car, right? You get in and you're in a certain framework, aren't you? Like the other cars are coming closer, so I slowed down, blah, blah. You just run those programs, right? And then you might be in a different state of mind when you get out the car, you come in the door and you're sitting down watching TV. That's another state of mind. You're watching something, some information or whatever. So it really is a very simple process. You don't have to be highly intuitive or psychic to access your Akashic records. You just have to learn to access a different state of mind, just like it's driving a car or watching TV. So what I personally find works best for me is I use a breathing technique which raises my chi in my body. I imagine, I visualize accessing the fifth dimensional realm by using a visualization exercise, and then I'm there. And then people sometimes ask what I do when I read for people. It's not very exciting looking because basically, I told you I was a nerd. I have a form and I have a pendulum and I'm muttering and I'm asking questions because a lot of the readings can be done remotely because energy is energy, however you slice it. And so I'm basically just asking questions of that person and writing down the answers. And then when we connect online, I transmit the information to them. So it's a state of mind. We can all do it. And I can guarantee that most people have been in their Akashic records or their Akashic energy, not even knowing that they have been.
So
it's just.
Sorry, oh God, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. No, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
Carry on.
Well, it's exciting. This is because there's a lot to this, and this is good work. So, obviously, when a client comes to you, I guess they've got what they feel are some questions for you. Do you say to the client, have some questions prepared, or just sometimes whatever you feel you're going to ask in the moment? What would you suggest they do?
Oh, great question. Thanks. So I have a cycle of readings. I'm actually bringing out 2 more cycles of readings over the next few months. But the first cycle includes general readings. So people can prepare. And I always suggest people write their questions down before they come on a call. Because you get much more out of your time and investment of all sorts when you're doing a reading if you're pre-prepared. So most people do that. Some people actually just like to come and they say just jam, just let me know what comes up. I'm happy to do that too, but it's always more helpful with a list of questions. So that's general readings. And then the reading that is most popular at the moment that I suggest most people start with is something called a soul star reading. And that's the one where we tune into the person's divine soul blueprint. So they learn a lot about themselves. And then I also ask, this is where it comes to setting that, like Google, do I want a lamp with a green lampshade or not? I actually ask their Akashic record to offer me up a past life story that most represents the blocks and restrictions they're trying to clear or want to clear in present life. So then it becomes like, oh, I recognize that pattern because I'm still doing it today. And then the other part of that reading, people actually get a 21-day prayer, which they can take away. And their mission, as Captain Kirk would say, should they choose to accept it, is to clear those blocks and restrictions from their record. And then from that point forward, we can start to make new choices about how we want to be in the world.
Yes, and I guess, do you see some clients sometimes that, yes, all the patterns come up, they see it in the reading, yet it really is something that they've got to work on themselves. This is just their greater part of themselves, shall we say, speaking back to themselves through you, right?
Totally.
Right. But that doesn't mean when they leave you in the Skype session, or if they had an in-person interview back in the past, right, that they're going to change those patterns. I mean, it's all free will.
Totally. And that, what I love about the Akashic work is it gives us the space to honor that with people. So it's totally, because it's all about choice. Some clients may choose to do the prayer. Some may start the prayer and feel they can't finish it. Some get the reading and say, thank you very much. That's kind of confirmation of validation. That's all I need right now.
Yeah, because you don't
It
know
really
whether your
depends on.
reading actually in many years' time is going to affect them, or is a long-term reading. Do you really?
No, not at all. And also, like everyone, I'd like to avoid more karma. So when we try and, there could be a situation where we go, oh, we really think as a client, you should do this. That's a form of control. That's not teaching people how to understand their own inner spiritual authority. That's, what we've done for the last 5,000 years is tell other people what to do. So people need to learn to do it for themselves,
Well, how do
is
you
the key.
clear that as well? Because obviously, we're only human. You're bringing this information through. How do you make sure that you're not in the way as well?
Okay, so I've been through a long study process. I also clear myself on a regular basis, and there are very specific protocols that relate to being able to read for somebody or not. There are actually some situations where a client may book and even pay, and I will say, once I've got their personal information, I'll say, I'm really sorry, I can't read for you this time around. Doesn't happen very often, but there are some situations where it's just not possible for me to read for that person, and I allow that. And the clients get their money refunded. So that happens too. So this is when it comes to expanding our energetic and consciousness framework. The other thing, I said the Akashic Records is all about questions. It's also all about new ideas, or ideas that grow us as a race of beings. And so new ideas are something that we need to embrace, as I'm sure you'd agree, in the business paradigm and the way the world is going right now. We're all going to have to learn to embrace brand new ideas, and not being able to do everything for everybody is to some degree a bit of a brand new idea in spirituality.
Well, yeah, we were just speaking about Edgar Casey there. He was all about off service, but it killed him.
Yes, but there were people he chose not to read for, and I love Edgar Casey. If anyone ever wants the best book about him is There Is a River by Thomas
Yes.
Segru, who was an old friend of his. But he would only ever do 2 readings a day. He
Yes,
only ever did 2 a
but he
day.
pushed himself though, even when his guys or whatever this energy was told him, you need to stop. You need to stop the smoking, but you also need to stop what you're doing as well, and just take it easy. Everything in proportion, and maybe even the smoking, right?
Right.
Yes, but he was his own. This was his life. He knew what he was
Those were his
doing. This
choices,
was his
right?
choices. Yeah,
Those were his
this was
choices.
his
And
patterns.
bear in mind, his frame of reference was he chose to read the Bible every once a year for every year of his life. So that was also his frame of reference. So he felt from his perspective he was doing God's work, and therefore, it must be a good thing, even if it was draining him. He just needed to take a rest, but he had to earn for his family too. So, it's kind of a tough place to be.
Who influences you on your path then? What is there anything that you're sort of influenced by, or you watch a lot, or is it, or have you kept yourself quite clean, where you're not been too influenced by many other people? Yes, you've been on your own seeker's journey, but now that's all done. You're now working on yourself with your own gift.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't ever say it's all done though, Kevin. It's like the onion. You go, oh, okay. They call it with coaches and spiritual advisors and things like that. They call it the mirror effect. So you get, and it's the same with coaches in all other fields. They'll tell you, you'll get the client that, mirrors your current life situation quite often. You go, oh, yeah, I'm still on track. I'm still working on my stuff too. So, I would just say I never like I never want to ever be in the position where I believe my own hype, and be Tom Cruise leaping up on the sofa. Don't, want to avoid that at all costs.
Well, he's not only leaping up on a sofa; he goes to space next year, doesn't he, with Elon Musk's company? So
Oh,
yes, he's
blimey.
he's doing a movie out there, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, well, you're talking about his belief in this Scientology or any form of or anyone's power over us where we need to have this whatever it is to have the answers, and we don't have the
Right.
answers within.
Exactly. So I think, uh, at the very highest level, let's not pick on poor Tom too much, but everyone has a control programs installed. This is a belief that I have that they're not aware that they have. So it's about checking in with those control programs and see what we're ready to clear as we progress through our journey, because we all have them, because we're all raised in human society, which we need rules and regulations. That's how we function. But so your question, I got all excited about talking about space and
I
all
know,
that.
right?
So can you repeat your question?
Well, actually, I think what I will ask you right now, because I think we've kind of answered that, but well, actually, no. What was it actually? There's so much I want to talk to you about. I'm like, God, what was that?
Oh no, don't tell me we've gone outside of space and
We've
time,
gone
Kevin.
outside of space and time right now because I'm
That's
like,
what happens. And then, then we have to ask for other information instead. Oh, you were asking me. It's all right. My guides popped in and moved my eyes down to I actually made a short list in case you asked me about people who influenced me.
oh yes, yes, good thing to
That was
do
your
that.
question.
Yeah,
Ding, see?
yeah. So yeah, people who
Back
influenced
into
you.
3D we
Yeah,
come.
yeah,
And
yeah.
well, there's been a few. I did mention Richard Bandler, who is along with John Grinder, was one of the originators of neurolinguistic programming. He was very influential, because my business partner and I used some of his material to write a course, which, believe it or not, is still running occasionally in the UK to this day. And we wrote it in like 1997 or something like that. So there's also a lady called Carla Hannaford who lives in Hawaii, and extremely interesting lady who brought out ideas about kinesiology and muscle testing and brain patterning, how we learn. And that's why I've been able, I think, to really be able to dowse very helpfully for clients, because I use a pendulum with my work, and kinesiology was the start of that journey for me. So it's about being able to intuit internal responses. Um, Gosh, there are so many. It's been to sound like an Oscar thing, isn't it? But I tell you what, I'll pick lady called Sika Nikolic, who I only worked with for 2 days, but she's actually a very well-known energy worker. She works at the Hale Clinic in London, and she has the most bioenergy coming out of her hands of anyone on the planet to date. And that's been tested by the Milan Institute, which is run by the Pope. So, that's cool. And so we learned quite a bit from her. And my one favorite piece of advice from her is, if you're an energy sensitive like I am, only ever go in elbow deep. That's all, you'll learn enough from another person by going. You don't have to like take their stuff on or take their energy on. So she was really helpful, really amazing person. All sorts of magical things happened in that course that, were just super. So there are loads. People I really like on the scene at the moment. I love Stephen Greer, if you know who he is. Really love his latest movie, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. I think if anyone wants to expand their narrative on spirituality, that movie is a great way to go. I also I like David Wilcott quite a bit too, and Corey Good. And I'm just watching something on superhumans now. I'm trying to remember. Lee Holden, I think his name is, who did the movie. So you may have heard of that one lately. So they're actually like showing people who've got amazing gifts,
Yes,
basically, to the
I
world.
I interviewed the producer director for that, Caroline, I think she was.
Hmm.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, Carol. Yeah, I know the movie you're referring to. Well, that's an interesting list, and that's interesting. You put Corey Good and David Wilcock in there as well.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they're two people that have a hell of a lot of heat on them from
Mm,
people who have their own YouTube channels, who are showing that there's another side to these people, that
right.
that who these people may be is not who they portray to be on the outside.
Mm.
Um, does that change your thinking on these people at all? I mean, have you heard such information that's out there, or?
You know what I do, Kevin, is I go on the information from the Akashic Records. So what happened, the reason I got connected with those people is because I've followed somebody else for years who's called Lisa Renee, and she has a site called Energetic Synthesis. And she's probably the only person, as far as keeping myself clean is concerned, that's probably the only podcast I listen to. Sorry about that, but we can only listen to so much, right? Although I might listen to this one if it comes out. Anyway, so um, for years, the reason I followed her was every month or 2 months when she did a podcast, when I had a dream or I had a body situation or a body pain, it would come up in that month's podcast or channeling or, whatever she was sending out. And I'd be like, there's a level of truth here. So I kept following her. And then I've followed Lee Carroll for years, who I know you said you've interviewed in the past. And so I've always found his channelings very catalytic and very energetically opening, and they make you. I'm always interested in people who make you think differently or have thoughts that you haven't heard before, and you go, "Oh, I never thought of it that way before," right? So there's Lee and channeling Cryon, and then David Wilcock came a bit later. But here's what's really cool, right? Lisa Renee, Lee Carroll, David Wilcock, they are all saying the same things. And the reason I started looking at them more was because that was what was coming through the Akashic record as well.
And what was that? What was that same thing?
That we're all expanding in consciousness, that consciousness is an aspect of science that hasn't yet been included in our 3D model of science, and it's going to absolutely change everything for us as a race. That when we begin to understand fourth dimensional reality, we're going to be able to expand our awareness to that and have a completely different life on planet Earth, which is basically why everything's going to crap right now. Because we're literally, everyone has had to stop. I'm not saying, COVID's awful and people have passed from it and people are very sick. I'm not one of those people who says it doesn't exist, because it obviously does. But there is a time, if you look back at history, where we're actually coming to the end of a cycle of consciousness and things are about to change. I mean, you and I are sitting here talking about our inner spiritual authority. 50 years ago, we wouldn't dare do that.
No, no, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, I met a shaman in the UK, British shaman, at Glastonbury, and he said even 5 years ago in the UK, he wouldn't have been able to do some of the things he can do now.
No, that's right. Absolutely, we are going through some big shifts in what. Yeah, and I was actually going to get into that. The problem I have with some of these big names like the David Wilcox or whatever platform it may be is that some
Mm,
of their so-called people that they put so much energy into, they haven't vetted them. These are not the people that they think they are. How
mm,
easily misled are these people to even want to give a platform to these people who they are not who they think they are? There's a lot of information that's put out that's all about this so-called government that's this cabal, whatever it is, that
yeah.
that we're powerless and whatever that may be. I mean, it's all very
Mm,
fun to watch, right? But
mm.
is any of it true? Yeah.
Well, it comes down to our own inner authority here, doesn't it? And our discernment as to what we find is true for us. I think there's a truth to every story. And here's one thing, there's my favorite quote on the wall, which actually comes from a David Wilcock movie that I'd just like you to consider, which I really love. And I look at it every day to make sure that I stay grounded and tuned into divine truth. Because if we can all stay there, then we'll find out what's really happening in all of our different realities. And the quote is, "The gravest error a thinking person can make is to believe that one particular version of history is absolute fact. History is recorded by a series of observers, none of whom are impartial."
No, and I tell you what I'm doing right now. I'm actually so I've been doing a channeling docu-series, but I'm also doing a docu-series on a true crime. And
Mm-hmm.
this is based on a platform called Project Camelot, and her top whistleblower is a guy called Mark Richards, and he's quoting that
Mm-hmm.
he's was framed for the murder of his friend Richard Baldwin because he served time in the secret space program.
Okay.
Now, obviously, after interviewing 25 people that knew Mark back, sorry, 23 people that are part of this documentary so far, people that knew Mark and just everyone that that would put this jigsaw together, and
Mm-hmm.
absolutely zero, there's nothing true about what he's saying. He wasn't even a
Right.
captain. And and obviously Kerry has given him her platform, and everything that she does is based upon his work, and there is
Right.
zero discernment. She doesn't want to see any evidence. So I'm doing this documentary, and there's a lot of people that don't want me to do it, and there's some people that are supporting me to do it.
Okay, good.
And there's other people that I've come across because of this documentary who have also shown to be not who they say they are as well.
Right.
So had I not gone on that personal journey, and I've not shared it yet in a docu-series mini series style yet, so no one knows what I've experienced or what I've gone through, I would
Mm-hmm.
not know these things that I'm saying. I would be like, I don't know, is he saying this? And when obviously having had this experience of how fraudulent that type of thing is, then you say to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
well, hang on a minute, is anybody checking out any of this other stuff? Why does it matter? Well, I don't know. I guess, do we want to be misled? I mean, is it nice to have a bit of discernment that's truthful for yourself?
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, what is this time that we're moving into? I mean, if we're just going to believe anything, and most of us will do. Most people are like this. He's got a big platform. She's got a big platform. He's got to get it right. They must have got it right because they just that's what they've got. But that's not the truth. That's not the case.
Absolutely. And I think, the truth will always out. And I think anyone that we follow online and anyone that we look at their information, we've got to see if they're checking their sources and look at the sources for ourselves, which, let's face it, the majority of people don't really have time to do unless they're focused on this aspect of work, in their work or something. So it just becomes another media source. So, yeah, I mean, it really does come down to, an inner knowing. Um, and plus that, I think one of my favorite psychic mediums is a guy called John Edward. And the reason you may know of him, the reason I like him, is because he's always so clear on validation. So any information that I work with or I use with clients, I always do my best to validate it for them or find some way to make it meaningful for them and give them references. I think that's very important. But I do think we're in the middle of a massive consciousness shift, and some of the filters that have been in place are going to be released, and then we're all going to find out what the heck is really going on. At
Right.
least I hope we will.
No, that's important to lead to. That's what I was trying to lead to with this, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah, I mean, I feel dirty doing what I'm doing sometimes. Of course I do. I mean, I'm no innocent person. Do you know what I mean? I've got a frigging past, right? Of course I have. But right now, I'm not going out there trying to not purposely trying to mislead anyone. I'm not doing it, and I know that's happening
Right,
right as we speak. Maybe
right.
because of their own mental health issues, the people doing it, or their own
Mm-hmm.
agendas because they're lost in their own BS, right? Or their compass is off, so whatever it may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that is true. We are going through a great awakening like that, and there's so many people that talk about going from 3D to 5D. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Are we? Why would? Are we? I mean, why would we want to in some respects when we can't even get, the basics done, right? And is it not that? Is it some other type of transformation? This is, as you said, part of it is the awakening of discernment, the awakening of the revealing time. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes. So, when we talk about multidimensionality, the way I perceive it from the perspective of the Akashic Records is obviously we're in 3D, incarnated in a body, space and time. Ouch, I can pinch myself, it hurts, etc. And then Edgar Cayce talked about the fourth dimension as the realm of ideas. And so that's where you and I think, imagine, dream, group consciousness, if you can call it that. So, I mean, the minute we hit the 4D wall, that's where the people who may not think that group consciousness is real will kind of stop. They can't maybe expand their vibration or whatever it is past that point. So, I mean, have you had personal experiences in 4D? Is it like the thing where you get synchronicity, somebody calls you when you're thinking about them, stuff like that?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so there is something, you can call it just something more if you like, good name, huh? then we have our five senses, but then there are other things, whether it's instinct or whatever it is that's going on, that we kind of, sometimes we just know some things that we don't realize we know, and then it happens, right? So that's 4D. And then the fifth dimension upwards, and quantum physicists reckon we have like at least 10 dimensions. That's what all the latest theories say. So anything from fifth dimension upwards from the spiritual perspective in the Akashic Records is to do with the soul. So that's where the Akashic Records are stored, and all the other things, whatever they may be, the experiences, like my secret life, is going on for the person. So if there is actually a measurement I take in the Soul Star reading where people can figure out if they're accessing fifth dimensional awareness on a regular basis. But general signs are things like having lucid dreams, starting to think about their own place in the world, questioning the systems and the ways that we're here, becoming disidentified with ego, like the great Eckhart Tolle, looking at his hands when he was, laying in bed suicidal and going, well, I've got energy inside my hands, who is that person who just spoke in my head and said they wanted to kill themselves? Was that me, or was it my energy? Or who else was it? So when we start having those kind of realizations, that means we are accessing fifth dimensional awareness. I mean, is that a situation you found yourself in?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've practiced channeling before. I mean, I've stopped it, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know that I can go back into that and speak to my higher self. I know we've all got that ability to go within, and
Right.
all answers lie within.
Right. But not everybody's ready to expand their consciousness persistently to that level, if you like. So, So when the view is, and this comes from Cryon, Lee Carroll, what he said for years is we only need 0.1% of the population on our planet to shift to fifth dimensional awareness to create a consciousness shift. And so, are we coming up to a tipping point? We might be. Because we've had all these things happen. It's not just been COVID, has it? There's been a whole bunch of things that have all happened at once, and people are questioning the nature of what reality they want to live in. And so that, from my purview, is a consciousness shift of some kind.
Do you think some of these big spiritual figures have had past lives as religious heads, big religious heads, and a lot of their flock right now who have moved with them are actually from that religious movement in past lives, and these preacher type style things are happening because they're all in this big soul group together. That's the real deeper connection, and they're repeating patterns that they've got to learn from, that actually this guy does not have the answers, and that you are being misled in some respects, and that's his teaching to you.
Now that's always possible, because souls incarnate in groups. I have a Akashic reader friend, and we always joke about that, the cliqueiness of certain souls. So souls always incarnate in groups, and we never create in a vacuum. We're always co-creating, because we're born and we live with a group of people, and we're creating our actions and our circumstances and everything as we go. So to some degree that's true. I wouldn't like to generalize it to one leader though, because that's not been my personal experience. What I can speak from is the patterns I see in clients, and I obviously wouldn't go into any individual client's information. But what I will say is that there is a pattern that runs through the Akashic Records, a data pattern, if you like, that there are some people who are, and whenever I connect with this, I always get the old-fashioned term proselytizers, which people who, speak from the good book or whatever, tome they might have. And they're people who are trying think of the person as a soul. So the positive aspect of the soul has a natural propensity to try and propel things forward or heal things in society or share with people a new way of thinking or being, however that may come across, whether there are positive or negative choices connected with that approach, right? So at the soul level, the person's soul blueprint has a propensity to do that. So for a lot of people through many lifetimes, if they were a proselytizer, they were probably also taken down pretty violently through several lifetimes too. So, I mean, let's think of an extreme like Braveheart, right? Is it not Robert the Bruce, but I think he was done overnight. Humans are really good at finding ways to do people in nastily. So people with the kind of what I call the proselytizer pattern, it comes up. I have a particular sense of it in a reading. They have probably, been done in for their thoughts, beliefs, or approaches many, many times, and had to bear the brunt of that, sometimes unjustified karma and things like that. So yes, that's entirely possible, but I wouldn't ever want to attach that pattern to a specific person, because I don't know them at all.
I'm absolutely not. I'm just saying there is something probably bigger working itself out here as well that we're not aware of.
Sure.
And I do absolutely feel 100% what you're saying, that there are groups, there are people that come into our lives for a reason. There's something that's maybe before has taken place and it's working itself out. Look, this doesn't have to be true to anyone that doesn't think this is true. I mean, it doesn't affect anyone for us to believe that this is a possibility. It's just a way that we are trying to make sense of some of the things that happen, and to empower ourselves to go and just become that better person, just for seeing the pattern. And that's exactly what your work does as well. I think you do some amazing stuff, and just sort of and I think even anything I'm involved with, like when I'm doing this true crime docuseries, maybe somewhere in some past life I was connected with the guy that got murdered, and maybe I was something to do that was someone that hurt him, and this time I'm here to put that right, because that's my karma for I don't know, who knows, right? It's all fun to say it, right? But it's also nice to be able to think outside the box and have that ability as well. But you've gone through, I mean, I like your work, I really do, from the moment you started talking to me on this interview, and you've gone through a hell of a lot, right?
Yes.
I will say that. I mean, are you okay to talk about some of that stuff?
I think I'll leave the family aspect out of it for now, if that's okay. But one area I am comfortable talking about is actually I say the family, but younger family, my mum.
Yes.
I'm happy talking about that.
And because that's a big thing as to why you've got this name as well that you've got. So let's tell us that story. Yeah.
Okay. So my dear mum, she passed in 2010, and when she was very sick, she told me that I should write about what I know and share it with people, because she said in 100 years' time, people like me will no longer be dying of these illnesses. And I was like, that's interesting. And there's some technical term I looked up afterwards. When people are on their deathbeds, it's like there's some legal term for it. They could say truths, and it kind of really, really stuck with me. And so that's why I created the site Mum on a Spiritual Journey, MOM, the American spelling. And I just literally, from that summer she got very sick, I started blogging. Now, what was a really big spiritual opening for me with my mum was that for years she'd really been a denier of the whole internal world thing. So the few times when I went, after I saw that Romany gypsy, there were so many things that person knew about my life and my family that I couldn't they couldn't know. They were a total stranger to me. It was a 90-year-old lady at the end of Portsmouth Pier. I mean, how is she going to know about my life? And I went home and told my mum, and I got the look. I got the, you're lying, and that can't possibly be true. And so for years, she kind of wouldn't allow those kind of conversations. Yet when she got very sick, I helped her with the EMF balancing work, which is actually really helpful for people who are in transition. And she told me, she actually apologized to me for hiding her energetic life for all of her life. Yeah. And, she said to me, how grateful she was for the work that I did with her. And she realized her own mother, who she lost when she was 7, was also what my mum called like that. Because in those days they didn't have the words for that. I mean, what languaging was there to do? If you did say any of that, you were probably going to get arrested. So we went through this major healing process while we were together, and I would even give her the EMF sessions remotely, and she could tell me exactly what I was doing as I gave her the work remotely. So there was a big reconnection for us when she passed. And there's another aspect to her passing, which a lot of people find worrying or distressing to talk about, but it is part of the story because I feel it's important. She actually passed from the H1N1 vaccine, not H1N1, but a reaction to the vaccine. And so that started me on a whole other path of, research and trying to connect the dots. And what is going on in that whole arena. I don't want to key anyone off because I know there are so many, sides to this whole discussion and situation with vaccines. But I'm just saying, for me, that was my experience. So it changed a whole paradigm for me, and I wanted to learn more, about the aspect of our health for myself. So I have to say, my mum still pops in and is very supportive of the work, and that's why I put my blog together, because my mum told me to.
That is great. And when she passed away, was that in the UK?
Yes, that was in 2010 in the UK. So she had to go into hospice fairly swiftly a few months after she had the vaccine, and then she passed in the UK. So.
And were you there at the time, or?
Interesting you ask. Well, I was there for 2 weeks. I had 2 very small children at the time. And so I was there and I helped her move into hospice, but I didn't make it back in time for her passing. I went later and helped organize the funeral and everything. But what was really interesting is my oldest daughter, at the time that my mum passed, ran up the stairs, because we had a house with a little basement area. You know what it's like in Kansas, right? So she ran up the stairs and she said, "Mum, Grandma's gone." And then literally 10 minutes later, I had a call from my brother. So, I do. And since then, I've connected with a cousin in the UK who I realize is also like me. So we're beginning to realize there's like a family gift situation going on here. And then somebody else in our family did the Lawrence family tree. And there's a guy in Australia who's a shaman, a practicing shaman. So you go, okay, there's definitely something going on here genetically with, the female side of the family here. And my mum's mother and her sister apparently were like that too. So my mum kind of let me know, because that's why she got so freaked when I was younger. And I went to see this gypsy and she said this. And I feel I'm like, Mum was like, oh no, don't
exactly,
say that.
Exactly. So in that,
it would be a very bad thing.
Yeah. Well, in that period then of Mum's passing, then there was a lot of back and forth to the States in a short amount of time. Then
very much so.
I mean,
yeah.
Was there sort of any regret for not being there, or was there? Have you sort of been able to forgive yourself if there was, or?
Yeah, I think I've learned to forgive. I like the way John Edward puts it. He says, once people pass, they don't honestly care whether you were there or not.
Isn't that's interesting?
From the perspective of the people who've already gone before.
Yes, we don't think of it like that, do we?
Yeah. And we are in touch in so many ways. Literally, I've got a picture of it. The day after Mum's funeral, I was walking up the road to a friend's house, and it was days before you had, well, most of us anyway, had the video camera on our phone, so I only had the camera. So I'm quite old. so, so I was walking along the road, and British clouds and all that. There's usually quite a lot of them in the sky, and there were normal clouds, and then all of a sudden, on top of one cloud, this drawing started to form, and I took a picture of it, and it was like somebody took a child's crayon and drew an angel. It was a stick man with angel wings, basically. And I took a picture of it, and I knew that was my mum just popping in and saying, "Hey, look, I'm up here with all my skills and abilities now." And I was like, I cannot believe she did this. So, I
Yeah,
do believe,
of
but
course.
for a lot of people, that's still a bit of a leap, and I totally get that.
No, absolutely. Well, I'm just glad for you that, well, not glad for you. I mean, it's nice that that you've opened yourself to allow that ability that we've all got, right? For
Right.
mum to pop in and pop out, and you've got a new relationship with her now. I think that's what we forget sometimes when people cross over. We think it's the
Yes,
end, but it's on your terms now, in a
totally.
sense, right?
Totally.
So it's quite different. And this all relates back to the Akashic records, because I'm guessing that with when something like that does happen, as what did happen, you were able to look into any questions that you may have had on whatever you're going through at the time, and sort of relate it
Totally.
to the work that you've been doing for so long. Yeah.
Totally. So, I mean, the 2010 was the year my mum passed, the year I lost one of my closest friends, and also the year I opened to the Akashic Records energy. So it's not really a coincidence, is it, when you look at it that way?
No, no, and when you connect it all like that, it's almost like the slap in the face. But it could have been more gentler. But that's just the way that you needed it for you to go into that space.
Totally. Totally. So yeah, from that, I actually was after my mum passed, I was able to finish reading this book that I got, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's why I started giving the readings, because it was comforting, for everybody. So
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? As you said in this interview, and I know we've gone over time here, but yes, you may have all this wonderful ability, but you are still on your journey. And I think we should
mm,
relate that to anybody else as well. Do you know what I mean? We're all the same in
yeah,
that perspective. We're all
totally.
we're all trying to learn as well. And you also mentioned, obviously, manifestation, that with the soul blueprint, you can ask the questions about that particular, so if there's something that you want to manifest, or why am I not manifesting, or
Right.
what's blocking, and yeah.
Yeah, so interestingly, during COVID, I ended up being super busy with a lot more readings. Maybe people were forced to, somebody called the COVID shutdown like forced meditative retreat, because it's like now we're all in the house together. We all have to like get on and start thinking about things, and none of the usual distractions are in the way, right? So what was interesting, I never read for anybody under the age of 18, but I did have quite a few students, college students going, well, I'm just about to finish my degree in this and this, or I'm thinking of taking a degree in that and that. And they were actually asking for divine soul blueprint information, which I thought that's like the next generation. It's like, wow, they're really, getting it if they're asking for stuff like that. So they could match it up for the best way for them and make their own career choices, based on the information from the divine soul blueprint. So that kind of frame of reference can be extremely helpful for people as a resource, a personal resource, and also a coaching resource if they want to connect with somebody like me and discuss it further. So yeah, it becomes, so to give you an example, just for people to hang, the human brain wants an example to hang the hook, give me a hook to hang this on. So two of my soul aspects are to do with communication and love and healing. So you can see how I've always ended up in roles. I was a computer trainer, I taught people, business trainer, here I am doing something like this. So you can see how that soul aspect is kind of very well matched for me, and equals, abundance, work, and things happening. And then I also have another soul aspect, which is to do with love and healing. So I'm very interested in the alternative modalities, energy work, just general human wellness, either healing myself or others. So you can see how that would influence my behavior from the soul level downwards. And then if I make choices that are congruent with those soul aspects, then they're much more helpful for me as a soul, as well as the experience others have of me as a soul. So I hope that helps
It
give people
does,
an
and
idea.
it does. It absolutely does. And what I like about your work is that you're giving people their own power back. You mentioned that you
Right.
like the work of Lee Carroll. Well, when I look at Lee
Yeah.
Carroll, and when I've interviewed him a few times, I'm like, this guy is almost like it's almost like a guy that's yeah, giving. I'm not using the right words here, but giving you a self empowerment coach. He's giving
Yeah.
you that power back in a different type of way,
Yeah.
and I get it. I understand that, and that's what you're doing. And I think is that probably the times that we're entering as well, that we're all going towards that actually it's time to take your power back and stop wanting the to be misled by people, and
Yeah.
or needing whatever it is that people may have for us. That look, we all need entertainment, but we could switch it all off and life would still continue. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Totally. I think it's important to, yeah, it really is about connecting with the self from the perspective of knowing who you really are, tuning in with your inner authority, and being able to understand that we are all here for our own reasons, and we can make choices to affect that.
Why do you think that a lot of us are really struggle with that? That we we don't think we're good enough to come up with that by ourselves. And
Well, here's my view, and it comes from personal experience working with Richard Bandler. One of the things that always stuck with me about his work is that he talked about the natural human fears that we're born with. And what he said is that we're only born with two human fears. One is the fear of loud noises, which is also known as the Moro reflex. So it's like, if you make a loud noise behind a little baby, they kind of do the startle, they kind of go "Ah," like that. And that's a neurological reflex that happens, during the formation in the womb and so on. And then the other natural fear is a fear of heights. And again, they tested that with small babies, if they like stay away, even though mother's trying to encourage them to come over a pretend chasm or something, they actually cry and stay put. So my personal opinion about why we're all, working through all of this is that we really need to expand and understand how our consciousness works and what amazing beings we are. So if you really understood in your own personal life that you only had two natural fears, where have all the others come from? And what are they there for? Now, if you're like living in, I don't know, Arizona, and you've developed a fear of rattlesnakes, that's probably a really useful fear, right?
right.
But if you find yourself fearful to speak out because you've been raised in a family environment where you're seen but not heard as a child, which is, an old Victorian paradigm, amongst other things, that's really an idea that has no use in modern society now, in the way we're headed or directed. It's a control mechanism. It might have been a good idea when people were younger and kids shouldn't speak out in case somebody would, like, I don't know, shoot them or run off with them, or you know what I mean. But so these ideas, so it's like, which ideas do we want to run in our human software? That's the way I see it. So releasing fear and embracing love, which I know is a theme that goes through many spiritual practices, I think is one of the best ways to start in modern society. And most of what is going on with the breakdown of everything all relates to fear and programming, in my humble opinion.
Thank you for that. With what we're going through right now, uh, I guess that's going to continue for a bit longer than we all hoped for, but maybe it's needed.
Yeah, I mean, there is a viewpoint that sees we're evolving as a race on this planet, because the first thing, from the Akashic Records perspective, there tends to be a lot of very higher level information, which is, as we discussed, outside of space and time. So there's this aspect where the whole of consciousness on a planet, if you believe consciousness is actually a thing, it goes through evolutionary tipping points. So, in the last 100 years, we've gone through many of those, and what's the next tipping point? Well, from the Akash, one of the viewpoints is that we've all managed to create a form of group communication throughout the whole planet for our whole race of beings, right? Which is the internet. It's what you and I are doing right now. And so that is a sign from Akashic history that we're actually growing in consciousness and we're going to make some kind of consciousness shift. So we're at that point now. So I do have a sense that, we're going to start changing our realities. As to how we change them is down to our individual choices and actions, right? So you've still got people out there who want to control this whole tamale we call life, and be at the top, whatever the top is. If they still have that noxious belief about I must be the one at the top and I'm the best and I must have the most money and all of those things, that is still something that we created. It's still something that's been created, in the human belief system. Do we want to keep running those programs, or do we want to start creating new ideas and work with different ones? At the very highest level, that's what the Akashic work is about, other than the soul experience.
Have you ever given a reading to someone that's we would think that that person has committed the most heinous type of crime, whether it's rape or murder? Have you ever given a reading to someone like that?
Not that anyone's disclosed to me, but I could give you an example from my personal experience of when I first got involved in the Akashic work. I had a couple of other readers who I trust read for me, and both said the same thing to me about a past life of mine, which I take as validation, which is that I was apparently in a past life one of the investigators in the Salem witch trials. And I was absolutely horrified and upset about this in my current frame of reference. I was like, how could I have done that? That's such a terrible thing, given what I do now and who I am and my abilities and all of that. I would hate to have been that person. Just imagine what that person did and what they said and what they saw and everything. And one of my friends or my colleague who's reading from me, she said, Sarah, but consider this. You were just as psychic then as you are now. And you had a family to protect, and you were worried if they found out about you, you'd be in the pit with all the other people. So you did that to protect yourself. Now, doesn't that give a whole new frame of reference to a situation or a circumstance for somebody? So now in this life, I'm going, okay, well, I'm not, obviously I don't treat people like that anymore, but there was a time when I did. So what if all of us to actually evolve have been through all of these experiences, like to not do them, if that makes sense?
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you, if someone has done something heinous, are they able to want to, self-reflect and say, you know what, I'm going to go on that spiritual journey now. I'm going to change myself. And whatever I did in the past, I'm going to try to make this a better version. Maybe I would always be interested, if someone's done a murder, crowd, what is their reading going to say to them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It would be interesting. The only personal experience I have of meeting somebody like that was when I was a bit younger and I went to visit Alcatraz, being the British tourist. And there was actually a guy there who had been in Alcatraz, and he was a serial murderer who had now, served his time. And he was selling books and signing them at the gift shop, So
well, the reason I'm saying this, right, is that, we can be so judgmental, and we should be, there is always a consequence for an action, right? And there should be a system in place. I don't want to defund the police. I want the system, right? It's the protection for all of us, right? But are we looking sometimes at the deeper, there's things going on that we may, on this level, lots of us be very unaware of why that person's acting that way. That they had a free will, everything's with free will, but is there destiny involved in a person's reading? When you look at someone's reading, is there some things that you can't see because you're not supposed to tell them, and they're not supposed to know anyway because it's destined to happen?
You talk about destiny and fate and things like that. And well, first of all, as far as Akashic readings go, anything that I have an agreement with the Akashic guides, anything a client is not supposed to know, I either get like radio silence, or I get told you say it in a different way, or you don't say this. And also I'm very careful because I don't want to incur any more karma with anyone. I want to be a karmic athlete this time around. I'll bend myself like a pretzel if I have to. I want to stay out of all of that. I'm done with all of that this time around. So as much as is, humanly possible in the world that we live in. Yeah, I would say that I've gone completely blank again. I think I answered the question, didn't I?
Yeah. We were just saying there that if things are destined, would you be able to? Would you see it? Would you be able to? Would you be able to? Yeah, and you kind of
Well,
answered
with
it
that
really.
that kind of reading, I tend not to look. I do future work with people, but I really like to keep it empowering so that they look at. But there is a place you can go in the Akashic Records called the Zone of Choice, which is kind of a different frame of reference, and you can look out and see opportunities and potentials. But usually, most of them involve people moving out of their comfort zones. So people have to come out, have to get out of that. See, I hit the nail on the head there, didn't I?
Yeah. Yeah.
So once people accept that they can do that, then they're likely to move into one of the futures. I'm not a predictive psychic like some are. I tend to, because my focus is, because I have this soul aspect of healing, it tends to be more about what can we work on in the present moment, and then that might change things for the person in the future, of course. So I prefer to keep my focus on the now rather than, because
well, it's important. It's so
yeah,
important. I think even I've said this before in these interviews. Even doing the channeling documentary or docu-series, the most crazy questions that I could think of at the time to kind of go beyond what we know now only led more to go straight back to present moment in the answer. So it really drove home just like how important right now is. But yeah, that's great that you can do that. And I think I really like your work.
thanks.
I think it's absolutely fascinating, and I think it's just so powerful. So, your website one more time
Is momonaspiritualjourney.com, MOM onaspiritualjourney.com, or you can just Google Sarah Lawrence Akashic and you'll find me. I have a second site called newworldenergetics.com as well. Okay, so that's it. I'll also be creating a community site. I'm actually working on it this month, so look out for that. And I've got my first online course coming up soon.
Wonderful. Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. Well, I would say to you, well, you can do this. I will. I mean, look, we're an hour and a half in now. It's fine. I would say to you, what is one final message if you'd like to give one that you think would be helpful?
Okay, one final message. I would say that it's, if you've heard about the Akashic Records and you're at all curious, I would say just go ahead and take the next action around it that resonates for you. It is a useful information source. We can all connect to it. We are all connected to it all the time, but we just need to learn how to shift our mind state to do that. And understand it, that it's your right as an individual incarnated soul on this planet to access your Akashic record and activate your own inner authority. And it's totally up to you.
Sarah, just thank you so much. And I know I'm going to get you back on in the future. I know I am. I think what
Woohoo!
you're doing is just so great.
Thanks.
And yeah, we're all on this journey together. So thank you so much.
Okay, Kevin, really appreciate the time today. Thanks a lot.